after 2 years, 9 weeks, and just 3 hours for the jury to come back from the deliberations to find the 6 defendants not guilty today. This doesn't speak just for Jobstown. It doesn't speak for just those 6 men. It speaks for the right to protest, the right to free speech, and it was a fantastic result. The guards did not get to gag us, did not get to muffle us, and this should go global and worldwide because it affects every single person out there, the 99%. And it was a fantastic day and a fantastic celebration.
And it's not only a victory for the accused, it's a victory for the whole nation.
Absolutely.
And those who believe that they are entitled to stand up for what is wrong.
Yeah.
Stand up and make it right.
And we're proud to have stood there today, proud to have been there on this journey. This is making history. This is absolutely making history, and victory was there, served on a dish today to all the guards and to all the politicians who twisted the truth just to get their own way and to affect protest and peaceful protest. And that's what Jobstown was.
So for anybody out there that was worried about protesting and being prosecuted, we've had a victory today. Feel free, take to the streets, do what you think is right,
get your placards,
and do not back down.
A fantastic day. Liberty and justice for all.
Seven.
All more people to light show!
What happened in there for the last 10 weeks was disgusting. What we saw in there was guard after guard taking the stand to lie, to tell lies that they knew were lies in order to try to criminalise protest. We know that Gardaí up to the ranks of superintendent falsified statements. They gave fabricated evidence in statements to try to ensure that the prosecution took place. That was exposed in court. It was exposed that the guards were lying. For example, 3 guards who heard me say, "Will we keep Joan Burton here for the night?" when it was never said, and yet they all happened to remember the same thing. So what was exposed was clearly a conspiracy. Clearly it was a conspiracy inside the guards to try to criminalise us, to try to criminalise the anti-water charges movement, to try to criminalise Jobstown. And that has to mean something in terms of the remaining defendants. The idea that the remaining defendants would go on with their trial when the whole thing is based on false evidence and lies by the Garda Síochána is a nonsense. We should have an announcement tomorrow from the DPP to say the remaining charges will be dropped to stop this nonsense. Because we estimate that millions of euros have already been spent in attempting to stitch us up for false imprisonment and attempting to criminalise sit-down protest, because that's what happened in there. That now has to be stopped. All the charges have to be dropped. But I'd also say we now need to have an investigation. How high, as Michael said, how high did this go in Garda Síochána? We know it's a Garda Síochána that is racked with controversy, with scandal. We know that it isn't a matter of 1 or 2 bad apples, but that the hierarchy at the top is absolutely rotten. How high in Noreen O'Sullivan's Garda Síochána did this conspiracy go? What element of awareness did any section of the political establishment have of this attempt to stitch us up for something that we didn't do? The question simply has to be asked. And I'd also say, in the context of Leo Varadkar coming into power, one of the first things he does is try to cut across the speaking rights of the left in the Dáil. Well, what's this about? This is, in reality, it's an attempt to cut across the resurgent, growing left. Because they've seen the anti-water charges movement, they've seen the power of ordinary people if organised what we can achieve, and they were attempting a preemptive strike, in effect, to cut the legs off of a broad section of the left, of working class people who were getting organised, and to try to criminalise people and to send a message to people to get back into their box, not to be protesting, not to achieve victories. And we won this because of the campaign we had outside of court as well as inside of court, and we won it because we had a really good jury that saw through what the guards were trying to do. The question was asked in court, and it's very valid, that, well, what if we didn't have the video evidence that we had? What if we couldn't prove that the guards were lying? Well, then where would we be today? And for that reason, it's essential that the charges now have to be dropped against all the remaining protesters, and that's why we're calling on people to come on Saturday at 2 o'clock to Central Bank to join with us in making that call.
Well said, Paul.
Just very briefly.
Yeah, well, look, one of the main things about this was the attempt, apparently the attempt by the judge to charge the jury in a way that was unfair. Now, the good side to that story is the fact that she was more or less persuaded to change her charge to the jury. And not surprisingly, an awful lot of what she had to amend in her original charge to the jury were elements of eyewitness testimony by members of the guards, which could be clearly refuted by video evidence. So the fact that ordinary citizens were in position and filming what was happening on the day made the difference in this trial. It's conceivable that without those video files produced by ordinary people who were part of that protest, the defendants would have been heading to prison right now. So when we hear the guards talk about lobbying for a bill to make it a criminal offense to film them in public while they're working, and etc., we know what they want to do. They want to pervert the course of justice. There's no other really interpretation of that. As I say, in the end, the process was fair here. There was a lot of money spent. The defendants gained a lot of really good legal representation, and I hope that's because there are people in the legal profession who are committed to preventing the sort of things that the guards and the DPP were trying to do today. And I guess it's important to point out that members of the bar work for the DPP, and they have to be privy to what's going on. They're not innocent in any way of these attempts to pervert the course of justice. Does it happen day in and day out in the courts? We have to presume that it does. And maybe what's required is much greater scrutiny, day in and day out, to scrutinize what's going on in the courts, the sorts of testimony and affidavits that are being produced, how the judges rule on the admissibility of evidence and all the rest of it. We need to work day in and day out as a democracy to guarantee that the courts work. It's nothing of an inference or any kind of allegation against individual judges. Judges in courts are necessary, but what's really important, all that matters,
Pretty
is
happy
access
with
to
the outcome
justice.
of the case here today, but anyone that sat through the 9 weeks of that trial, there wasn't really any other result. 9 weeks, it took a jury 3 hours to consider 12 different charges, 15 minutes each. So, foregone conclusion in many ways once you've seen the evidence. The giveaway was the other day when the judge had to charge them, said that if there's a conflict between statements and video evidence, you have to believe the video evidence, and the only statements that were given were by Garda and senior politicians. Kind of says it all. And now the question is, what was that case ever doing in there? We were put at the mercy of a jury in an extremely serious criminal charge.
There's euphoria here outside the courts, and it's no wonder. This is a great day for democracy, a great day because the jury found these people innocent, and the court case itself was extremely important because the legal team and the witnesses proved that there was a conspiracy here by the Gardaí. And the first thing that needs to happen is that all outstanding charges are dropped, and that Jay, the child who was found guilty in the children's court, has his conviction overturned. And then there has to be an inquiry as to what the hell went on here within the Gardaí, how high did it go, and who's to answer for this. But the immediate thing is to thank the jury and to say well done to the defendants, their family and their team. Excellent. It's a wonderful day for the water movement, for the left, for the people of Jobstown. Well done, everyone.